So I was watching um, a couple of my old videos. And for those of you who are just subscribed to me, take a look back at a video I did yesterday regarding Christmas list query or something along those lines. It's late, I can't remember the title of my own video. Ugh. Anyway, so I was watching one of my older videos and I was thinking back to my thoughts on Windows 8.1. I'd like to revisit those because these days there are a couple of things that are clear. Number one, it doesn't matter what platform you use, pretty much everybody is moving to the cloud. And that brings about number two, which is that there is no platform that has more security than the other. The key to security is good antivirus protection. Yes, even on the Mac. And to be honest, I wish they had something for the iPhone. Because I just recently heard from Pocket Now, from Pocket Now Daily's YouTube channel, that there is a piece of malware that was originally designed for the Mac that has been updated for iOS. Go figure. So the keys to protecting yourself from malware are good software, vigilance online, strong password protection, using secure networks, and just being careful. As we move more and more of our information to the web, that's the critical point. As a result, Windows is no more secure than OS 10 is. Now you're probably thinking, well, OS 10 is harder to crack. It's not that it's the thing here is that it's not necessarily whether or not it's harder to crack or easier to crack. It's that it can be cracked. Period. And if somebody knows what they're doing and has a vested interest in you, they could break into anything. So it doesn't matter what platform you're on, vigilance is a must. Software is a must. Keeping up to date with everything, your definitions, reading up on latest security threats, all platforms, Mac, Windows, Android, and even iOS. You know? Now, one of the other things that I want to point out is I did a little bit of bashing on Windows 8.1. Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to address this first. The positives of Windows 8.1 are no matter what device you run it on, it is a full PC. Something this size is a full PC. Now, granted, the experience you have in one of these small 8-inch tablets is going to be an absolute joke, and that is what I was trying to get into earlier, what I accidentally jumped the gun on. But going back, anything from an 8-inch tablet to a 13-inch tablet, you're running Windows 8.1, you've got everything. You've got literally a quote-unquote pocket PC. For those of you who are old enough to remember the pocket PC, remember how dependent on the desktop that was back in the early 2000s. Well, something like this Acer Iconia can be a true pocket PC. Granted, you have to have pretty darn big pockets, but so that's one of the major pluses. I mean, iOS doesn't necessarily have a file manager. It kind of does and kind of doesn't. And Android, of course, is going to depend on what hardware you get, what software you get. There are file managers all over the place, some with varying features. The only true way for a consistent experience, I think, is to use and if you want to use one of these new PCs, is to use Windows, because on every device the file manager is exactly the same no matter what. The devices you can use on it are exactly the same, no matter what. Um, Now, I did want to, so that's one of the big positives of using Windows 8.1. Now, I did want to recap on something that I said in my video about 5 months ago. What I said, a lot of the bashing that I did was around the fact that I was looking strictly at 8-inch tablets. The Surface Pro 3 had not come out yet. In fact, it was just before the Surface Pro 3 was released, or I'm sorry, announced, and completely blew my head out of the water. If you're going to use Windows 8.1 on a small device like this, for goodness sake, you'd better be happy with having a teeny weeny little desktop. Either that or blowing up the resolution to, I don't know, 320 by 240. I know that that's impossible, but to be honest, that's the kind of resolution you would need to make things readable on these 8-inch tablets. However, if you were to scale it up to something like this Lenovo Yoga 13, which to be honest is one of my, I've been shopping around for possibilities to replace my MacBook Air. You probably noticed in the last video I talked about the Microsoft Surface, for those of you who have seen it. This looks like a really compelling option. It is a full PC. For those of you who are wondering what holding something like this is like, if you have a 13-inch laptop, whether it be at a PC or a Mac, wrap your arm all the way around the monitor and grab it with your hand, wrapping your fingers around it. That would be the general idea of a 13-inch tablet as far as the girth is concerned. But it'd still be a heck of a lot more portable. Plus the fact that I know a lot of people are going to say, well, it's a tablet. To me, it's a full PC. It runs full Windows. It is a full PC. This little Acer is a full PC. Granted, like I said earlier, the experience is absolute, horse manure on this. Whereas with something like the Lenovo, because it comes with a keyboard and the screen's actually pretty good sized, it can be very, very usable as a day-to-day system. Granted, you don't want to do any super hardcore gaming on it, which to be honest, I don't do anyway. The Intel Atom, I think, would be perfect for everyday casual internet use, iTunes. I can't say for sure how well Skype would work on an Atom, but, you get the idea. Or something even better. This Lenovo Horizon, 21.5-inch Windows 8.1 PC. One of the great things that this is the prior Horizon. They just released the Horizon 2. In fact, boardatwork.com did an unboxing, or not an unboxing, first look at one, and that's how I knew it existed, believe it or not. But something like a portable all-in-one that you can move from room to room in the house, like if you want to have a computer in the guest room. What's more, as we become more and more dependent on the internet, if you're in an area that is prone to power outages, like my summer house is in an area where you're liable to get them quite often, having an onboard backup battery to do some research like on local weather conditions, if you have a full battery, the power goes out, you're good for 4 hours. So that would be a real help, I think, in the emergency power supply market. Now, am I saying that Windows 8.1 is perfect? Absolutely not. There are obstacles. For instance, I was mentioning that a all-in-one PC like this, or at least a 13-inch, if not above, maybe 10 inches in a pinch, something with a touch screen, as long as you can make out the icons on the desktop, I'd say it's perfectly usable as an everyday PC. Something like this, the Acer Iconia W3 or whatever it is, nope, nope, no. The problem is, when you get out to the main desktop, the icons are too small to be made out by anybody who has less than perfect vision, number one. Number two, the internals are such that now this this Yoga PC has 4 gigs of RAM. This has 2 gigs. In fact, I even saw something on Microsoft's Windows Store that had 1 gig of RAM. And it completely depends on what you want to do. If all you want to do is check email, then something like this might suffice in terms of power. But in terms of user experience, I would not recommend anything other than, at the very least, a 10-inch, ideally a 13-inch or above, something with a touch screen, or something like an all-in-one desktop like this. Now, I think another barrier to Windows adoption, I grew up with Windows 95. And I'm used to having a user experience like this. Most people are used to having a user experience like this. I go into Best Buy and I see quite a few people around the Windows section. And I do often wonder, because most people, they're quote unquote the average consumer, don't necessarily follow technology trends such as myself, or I'm sure many of you that watch this channel. And as a result, if you've got a Windows PC, say a Windows XP, and you want to get a new PC, because Windows 7, you can still get Windows 7, but it's becoming harder and harder to come by. So you pretty much have no choice but to get Windows 8 if you absolutely have to get a new PC. And I think part of the problem is the consumers who were used to the old way of doing things that are being presented with this are running scared. People that are picking up these little cheapo Windows tablets because they're used to Windows and they want to try it out, it's not a good experience for them because the desktop is too small. And in a lot of cases, these 8-inch budget tablets, yes, it may be a full PC, but part of the reason your experience is so bad is because it's underpowered. So I think it has to do with user resistance to change. I think that people in my generation, yes, I grew up with Windows 95, but I was able to pick up the iPhone and any touchscreen device, and I'm sure generations after me would take to Windows 8.1 no problem. Older people, not so much. Those that did not grow up with a smartphone, probably not, and anybody who has Windows 8.1 that buys it without a touchscreen, I think that's a lot where we're getting a lot of the complaints. People that are resistant to change and people that think that everything's going to be the same when in fact there are a lot of changes to Windows 8 versus Windows 7 and especially Windows XP. Because to be honest, the operating system isn't bad. I do like to take a look at the various Windows hardware options out there. And Windows, I know that the concept of the quote-unquote tablet PC has been around since the early 2000s when Bill Gates introduced it, and they had the really bulky, super heavy IBM ThinkPads that had the monitor that could flip back on itself, and you try to lift that thing and you have to be lifting weights at the gym. It was one of those concepts that was ahead of its time. I think that today, with the hardware where it is, you could very easily make a case for this. And especially if you have something like this. So I think that under certain conditions, Windows 8 can be very usable, or 8.1, I'm sorry, can be very usable. And on other conditions, not so much. What do you guys think? Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome and have a nice day.